Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how are you doing?
Good. Excited for roughly 26 hours in the car on the way to Nebraska and back. Should be great.
I call it smoothly 26 hours in the car on the way to Nebraska and back. And we will be on the road Friday all day long. Who knows? Maybe we'll do some like a Facebook Live or something, or some way to keep ourselves entertained, but we'll see. Anyway, today, Thursday, got to talk to Ryan Day for the lightning round before I believe they will fly to Nebraska, and they'll be there probably sooner than we will. Tom, today, Ryan Day didn't have much to add, but this is a game that we didn't say much, or we probably didn't say enough about it on the last show, just because there is a lot of different aspects to this game. Ryan Day today, did he add anything of special note other than, I thought one thing that I took away from it is this week they worked on conditioning for the defensive line, defense as a whole, quite a bit, because they're going to be trapped on the field when if Nebraska is getting first downs, because they'll go with the tempo and they may not be able to substitute. So guys who are used to coming in and out of the game and who are used to playing 25 or 30 snaps for a game may end up being out on the field for 6 or 7 and going full speed the entire time. So they've worked on conditioning this week, and that will have to show up this game on Saturday.
Well, that's something that Haskell Garrett talked about last night, that was kind of a point of emphasis to practice this week, because normally they handle rotation by, hey, we've got 4 defensive linemen out there, and after 5 plays, they'll all go run off the field, and a whole other group of people go out there. And they just kind of do that throughout the game. They can still use that depth to their advantage. It's just going to be one defensive line is out there for 5 or 6 plays, or 10 plays, or however long the drive is, and then another defensive line maybe go in that next drive. So you're still not going to have, you're going to have short burst durability, and stamina, but overall, this should be something that impacts Ohio State less than it does a lot of teams that Nebraska is going to play this year.
And they do face tempo throughout the week in practice, and so going from, say, Tressel ball to this would be, that's why Jim Tressel, the Buckeyes needed in that 2009 season, after the Rose Bowl, after the season, they needed like the entire bowl practice maybe to get up to get ready for that. This team doesn't necessarily need that. Day did say during his radio show that they'll be getting some guys back on the defensive line, being, of course, as cryptic as he is with injuries and names and never the two shall meet. We don't necessarily know who that is, but we can assume it's B.B. Landers and Jonathan Cooper, I think.
Those were the 2 names that I thought when he said that.
I saw Cooper Wednesday after practice, and he looked fine. He looked ready to go and hopping around, jumping around. I didn't see BB, but others did. And we kind of speculated last week that it wouldn't be surprised if that was more of just a precautionary, we don't need you this week type of thing. And so if it's those 2 being back, that would be huge for the Buckeyes. And I'm interested to see what Jonathan Cooper adds. And as we talk about him as if he's already coming back, and we'll get the availability report on Friday. But if Tyreek Smith is still out and you can bring back Jonathan Cooper, a guy who is going to be fresh, going to be insanely beyond hungry, starving at this point, and you've got this red jersey or possibly black jersey. We don't know what Nebraska is going to be laying out there, but Jonathan Cooper, his first opportunity to get out there, he's going to be going 150 miles an hour, which may bode poorly in terms of keeping containment.
yeah. You have to go 150 miles an hour, but do it wisely, which is also a lesson for us on our 13-hour drive to Nebraska. Yes. Cooper is someone who came in with all the hype in the world, borderline 5-star prospect, was someone that a lot of people viewed as a potential immediate impact player. And then he hasn't gotten a chance to really live up to that for the most part so far. He's certainly been a contributor. What did he have, 6.5 sacks or something like that last year, something like that. So, I mean, he has obviously had a productive career at Ohio State, But this is his last year. This is his last chance to achieve, his big goals at Ohio State that he set out to achieve when he got here. And he has not been able to do that so far. Now, he's a team captain. He's obviously, that's, I'm sure, one of his goals. And so that's, check that box. But on field, this is his first chance to actually go out there and do it. So yeah, I don't think effort or intensity will probably be an issue for him if he is back this weekend.
And getting Beebe back would be huge in terms of collapsing the pocket, which is what I believe Jay Sean Cornell said on Tuesday that they want to do, and kind of come at him from all sides and just continue to squeeze down on him. And if you get Robert Landers back, he's quick, he's fast in there, he's a good pass rusher, he's a difficult matchup for a lot of guys. And this Nebraska offensive line, I finally got to watch some of their game against Illinois on Wednesday. And boy, I was not impressed. And this is an offensive line that does not run the ball, or they're running like 4.6 yards per carry, I think, which is not great. But they are 12th in the Big Ten in sacks allowed. And I was not impressed by them. And Illinois was all over the place in the backfield. They were just terrorizing Nebraska. And yet Nebraska still throws up almost 700 yards of total offense. But when I see what that game looked like and compare to now add in the Ohio State defensive line, I see a very hectic day for Adrian Martinez with the Buckeyes in the backfield quite a bit.
Yeah, in our game predictions that we will be posting on Friday morning, I mentioned this, but Nebraska is currently 92nd in the country in sacks allowed. That and they have not played a defense that is remotely Ohio State's caliber. I mean, the closest thing is probably Colorado in terms of defense, probably. And they put up 31 points in that game and lost 34-31, I believe, and blew a 17-0 lead. I mean, that's not great. That's not what you're looking for there. And this is still a young team. This is a team that Ryan Day was asked about this today. Scott Frost did not inherit the kind of program that Ryan Day inherited. Scott Frost was more of a build it from the ground up program. Like, they had some individual pieces that were like, oh, that's a pretty good player. But for the most part, Scott Frost has had to do this from the ground up to bring in kind of that 4-star caliber player. And he's done a pretty good job recruiting. They're not recruiting as well as Ohio State, but no one in the Big Ten recruits as well as Ohio State. But they're 2 years into that process. Their upperclassmen, for the most part, are not quite the caliber of the players you probably need to, beat Ohio State 4 out of 10 times or something like that. They will get there. I mean, already go ahead and circle that 2021 trip to Lincoln as a potential issue for Ohio State, because at that point, Scott Frost got 4 years of his recruits in, and then it's probably a much more equal matchup.
Do they play that year?
They should. They play every year up through 2021. Yeah. So that they will get there ultimately. They're probably still a couple years away. Now, that's the point at which Nebraska is beat Ohio State 3 or 4 times out of 10. They don't need to beat them 3 or 4 times out of 10. They need to beat them 1 time out of 1. Mm-hmm. And so, this is a losable game, but losing on Saturday probably involves a lot of turnovers or very silly mistakes, or Nebraska just absolutely playing out of its mind.
And turnovers is something that Nebraska has had an issue with. I think they fumbled it 9 or 11 times, something like that, in just these 4 games. And it hasn't taken much for them to get the ball dislodged, be it from defense or just poor handling. And there's a possibility of rain in this game, which I don't think will help matters. And when you've got Ohio State, who is focused on strip sacks, that's their calling card right now. That's what they're going after. You could see some more turnovers in this game. You've got all of the elements of it now. If Ohio State protects the ball, then they're going to be very hard to beat in this one. You mentioned just Scott Frost and Ryan Day, I think, is an interesting thing to me. Because even when they are not playing annually, I could still see them playing annually in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Because I think these two are the future of the Big Ten, in Ryan Day and Scott Frost. And he's been able to get some guys that Ohio State wanted, be it, I think Wan'Dale Robinson had an offer at the end. Mm-hmm. Tyjon Lindsey was another guy who had an Ohio State offer and was actually committed to the Buckeyes. ends up at Nebraska. Maybe it's just the slot guys that Ohio State can't land and Nebraska could. And if you watched any of what Wan'Dale Robinson did last week against Illinois, I know people want to compare him to Rondale Moore, and they're similar. I don't want to say he's not a poor man's Rondale Moore. He's probably maybe like a lower middle class man's Rondale Moore. He's got a good job, but he's not as strong as Moore. But he still carried. He went in, played some running back because Maurice Washington was injured. Carried the ball for like 19 times for 80 some yards or 100 yards, around that mark. Caught a bunch of passes and is very quick. And when you watch him in the open field, he will remind you of Rondale Moore. It's when he's being tackled by 6 guys and somehow comes out of it that, that doesn't happen. One guy can bring him down as long as he is in position to do so. So he's good. As I mentioned, Maurice Washington, he looks like he'll be back. I think they said on Monday or Tuesday that he'll be fine. And he rushed for 100 yards on limited carries. And they've got a transfer from Georgia Tech, Dedrick Mills, I believe, is the running back. And then, of course, you already mentioned J.D. Spielman, Adrian Martinez. They've got some really good playmakers. And I do expect them to hit some big plays and make the Buckeyes miss. Ohio State is, I don't know how many tackles they've missed. You could probably count them on one hand when the game
not many.
Has been still in doubt. And I think they might have as many missed tackles as they've had all season they could have in this game and still be playing well on defense.
Yeah, this is for sure a better set of skill position players than they've faced for the most part this year. And that's, we talked about that a little bit on the Tuesday show, where they're going to hit a few plays.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a game where you should expect a shutout. This is not a game where you should expect Ohio State to give up 7 points. Nebraska's going to hit some plays. It's just, can they do it consistently enough to outscore Ohio State is kind of the question. There are a lot of areas. I mean, the skill position spots are areas where you should probably be a little bit concerned if you're an Ohio State fan. There's a whole lot of other stuff that, I mean, you mentioned the sacks, you mentioned the turnovers, the fumbles, like all of that stuff. Nebraska can't turn the ball over. If Nebraska loses 2 fumbles, they can't win this game. If Nebraska gives up 5 sacks, they can't win this game. If Nebraska misses, settles for field goals and misses field goals, Nebraska can't win this game. And Nebraska is 2 for 7 on field goals this year. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, this is all the stuff that Scott Frost doesn't have sorted out yet, that 2 years from now, they will. Right now, it's not there yet in a lot of kind of very important places. And that's what's going to ultimately probably decide the game.
Yeah, this thing with the field goal situation, because when I was doing my score prediction, I'm thinking, maybe Nebraska scores about 24. Then I'm thinking, I doubt they even bother kicking a field goal. And that will change the mentality. You move to a more aggressive kind of play call when it's, say, 4th and 7 from the 24. You're not, do I really want to throw my kicker out there and they've split kickers. There's, it might be the 2nd or 3rd string kicker at this point. Do I really want to go for a 41-yarder, or can I just go ahead and go 4th and 7? Mm-hmm. And then that leads to a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And now you've got this momentum. So I think it might change the play calling and just the attitude of what they do on offense, because there's no sense in relying on a field goal that really isn't going to do you much when you may have to score 35, 45 points to win this game. Although 45 would need a field goal. Maybe at the end when it's 42-42 and you've got, you're 20 yards away. But it will be interesting to see how that factors in. And Ohio State has a similar situation in that they don't necessarily have the most consistent kicker yet, but they also haven't built up that consistency and tried to do much. And if rain is an issue, the kicking game may be a wide open thing.
Yeah, the rain is kind of the X factor here, and that was something that Ryan Day mentioned. He talked about, are they going to be ready for the challenges they faced, and the challenges being tough road environment. I mean, I don't want to besmirch the denizens of Bloomington, Indiana, but when the stadium is half full of Buckeyes, it's not the most intimidating road environment. This is going to be loud. How loud is it? I mean, I've had people in my mentions this week talking about how, I tweeted something about, Ohio State's practicing with crowd noise, and the responses were like, it doesn't matter. They have, there's nothing that can prepare you for the hellfire you will face. And like, all right, settle down. They were there 2 years ago. It's fine. They played at Penn State last year on a whiteout, right, and they won. Like, it's fine. That is not going to decide the game. It's something they just need to deal with. The rain's a little bit more of an X factor. They obviously had rain last week, but that was not at a point when anything mattered. So, how much will that impact the game? That probably makes it more important for them to be able to run the ball, and that probably, again, would favor Ohio State. If you're thinking Ohio State has an advantage in the trenches, that probably favors Ohio State. Just basically, if it rains, just hang on to the football and you're probably fine.
Yeah, and the rain generally, for me, I think it tends to favor the less talented team because it evens the playing field. But here, it doesn't help Nebraska. And so if it doesn't help Nebraska, it hurts them. And because Nebraska does not run the ball as well as Ohio State. Ohio State can do more than just run the ball. Nebraska hasn't shown that they can run the ball. As Tom, I have to stop here. We've parked all the way from everybody so that there's no noise today. We're all by ourselves. And now somebody has come and just, for some reason, who knows why, has decided to park right next to us.
In a wide open parking lot. Yes, 2 spots away. Yeah.
It's like when you go to the urinal and you're all the way over, you're by yourself, and then somebody just keeps walking by, and they're right next to you when there's 6 other places to go and do your business. But I'm sorry for that. And we have no fourth wall here. So, but the special teams, we'll eventually get to the Ohio State offense, but regarding the special teams, let's talk about Garrett Wilson and punt returner, because he had the 52-yarder last week. Ryan Day was asked today about, is this Garrett Wilson's job? And I'll go ahead and let you read it. But I think that the most important thing was Ryan Day saying, well, he made a statement. And then Tom, what statement was that?
Yes.
Well, what statement was Ryan Day's statement on Garrett Wilson's statement?
Yeah, the statement made by Ryan Day's statement on Garrett Wilson's statement it sure sounded to me, and you had kind of the same reaction, was, so Garrett Wilson might be the punt returner now until Garrett Wilson screws up, which is, that could be one return and a fumble, and then you've got someone else, because they have options. It's not like they don't have options there. But if Garrett Wilson can establish himself as a reliable punt returner who is going to catch the ball, not let the ball bounce, catch the ball, not muff the ball, then this may be Garrett Wilson's job.
And if there's one thing we've seen from him, it's that he catches the ball.
Yeah.
And, now it might bounce a couple times when he's laying on his back in the end zone, but he's a strong, sure-handed guy.
So here was the exact quote. I think that Garrett made a statement that he wants to go become a returner. He'll have an opportunity to do that at certain times. DeMario will still return punts for us as well, and kickoffs, but other guys are fighting for those positions. And when they get their opportunity, it's like any other competition. Garrett made a statement with that return the other day.
So it's a whole bunch of nothing, but what I get out of it is, Garrett Wilson won the job, and we're going to do that because when you make a play like that, why go away from it? Why bench him? But also, DeMario McCall will still have some shots, just as they have been switching back and forth all season long. And even Jalen Gill got in there late last week. But yes, we're going to go with Garrett Wilson moving forward, but don't let that think that we won't also put DeMario back there at certain times as well. But for the most part, it's going to be Garrett Wilson because, did you see what he did?
You could also read this to be maybe Garrett Wilson is going to get an opportunity in the certain situations. If they're going to get the ball and Garrett Wilson's standing on his own 30 and has a chance to return it 70 yards, then maybe that makes sense. And if they're going to get the ball in the 50, then they think they have a pretty good chance to score. And so you go with someone who you view as more sure-handed or something. You could look at it situationally. If you want to read the quote that way, you could do it that way. And this is one of those things where he's not going to tell us. We're not going to know for sure until Saturday. And Saturday, if it's raining sideways, they may not want to put a freshman out there anyway. So
KJ?
Yeah. If it's raining sideways, it's probably a KJ Hill punt return game. That would not surprise me at all.
I think Ryan Day talked about Garrett Wilson earlier in the week, too, that they like his aggression and going for those punt returns. And that's something that I think DeMario has struggled a bit on, letting a couple of those bounce or, calling fair catches and running away as opposed to maybe grabbing them at the 10-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
So they like what Garrett Wilson does there. And if you can find that guy who is just naturally, I want to go get this, and can time it up and just continues to save them those hidden yards. It's what Jalen Marshall did when he wasn't also giving up some of those hidden yards with muffed fumbles. So anytime we can see more of Garrett Wilson, I'm all for it. And I think this is an opportunity. But again, like you said, it depends. Are they kicking? Is Nebraska punting from midfield?
Yeah.
And do you want Garrett Wilson's first opportunity in this game to be that?
Right. I don't think you're going to have Garrett Wilson be the heels on the 10 guy. That's probably not a good spot for him. But if it's, a little further out, if they're punting from their own 20 or their own 30, then maybe you think about it then. They obviously want to put him in a position to succeed. And it's just a question of how much they trust him. They obviously think very highly of him. They saw the same punt return you all saw last week. They know what that means and what that could mean in a game like this. But you also have Ryan Day, as an offensive coach, believes in his offense and probably believes, hey, if we just get the ball, we're going to score more often than not. So we don't have to make a play. This is not a team that has to make a play on special teams. If Ohio State just doesn't screw up on special teams on Saturday, they probably win. And so the question is exactly how, where is Garrett Wilson on the excitement versus trust scale? And I guess we're going to find out on Saturday.
The other scale is dude versus guy. He's a dude.
Yeah.
And so you have more, you're more comfortable putting him in that situation because he is just different. He's not just a guy that you're like, well, you know what? We need to sugarcoat this. We need to baby him. It's wise to do that with freshmen, but he's also not just your typical freshman. So we'll see where that goes. I asked Day today about him and Jameson Williams in comparison to where Chris Olave was last year to see. I'm not writing anything about it. I just wanted to know, are they ahead of where Olave was last year? And I think he said, no, not necessarily, no, and kind of shot that down. So I just wanted to figure I'd pass that along to you guys because I'm not going to do anything with it right now.
Well, I think you just did something with it.
I put it to good use.
And the thing that he pointed out, because statistically they are ahead of where Chris Olave was last year. But what Day pointed out was they've been so much further ahead this year that the younger guys have gotten the opportunity to play a lot more often than they did last year. Because last year the defense was giving up 35 or 31 points to Oregon State. So all of a sudden when the offense scores 77, it's not 77-5, it's 77-31, which means it was 52-31 in the middle of the third quarter and still potentially a blowable game. So,
it's funny. When we would do those pregame shows last year, early on, we would talk about, and we'll get to see some younger guys. We'll get to see some of these freshmen before they redshirt. And we never did. And they needed every single senior and every single junior. And then that's why you throw for 5,000 yards when you're the quarterback who was in the game the entire time, basically. But that's not been the case this year, unfortunately. So we're seeing a lot of the young guys. We're not getting to watch a lot of the veterans. And, Chase Young only has 7 sacks on the season. The Nebraska defense talking about the need to contain Justin Fields, and they've faced Adrian Martinez, so they're familiar with that. And both teams are saying that what we'll see from Justin Fields this week, I don't know if it's going to be an amped up version of Justin Fields, because we've seen him easy not having to play against tough defenses or late in games or not facing much adversity. This week is going to be the biggest thing he's ever done as a Buckeye, and it's something that the entire team has been preparing for. But as a quarterback, as the team leader, he has to be the guy that doesn't sweat. He has to be the guy that's calm the entire time. And how he goes, I mean, that's going to be how the offense goes. The offensive line can be great, but if he's off and throwing the ball off, that'll cost them a 3rd and 7. You know, and they'll have to punt because he is too rattled. But throughout the entire time we've seen him and talked to him, I've never seen him really rattled. Or you know how Dwayne Haskins would get pressured a couple times early on, would get blitzed and would not look great. I don't know that we've seen that. Now, we have seen Justin Fields leaving the pocket early, maybe, and trying to get out of dodge a little bit quicker. But he has answered every bell.
Yeah, he has not failed at anything yet.
Right.
And he's someone who has faced some challenges. I mean, he has not faced a ton of pressure. He has not just been under assault in the pocket in any game. But he's had guys in his face. He's gotten hit before. And Day talked either Tuesday or after the game on Saturday that a couple times when he had a guy in his face, he made a nice throw. He hung in there and made a nice throw. So he's not someone who just gets rattled and hears footsteps. And so he should be okay from everything that we've seen so far. I mean, every test that we've had, everything that I've come into a game and thought, well, let's see how Justin Fields handles this. It's been like, oh, he's fine. Okay. Yep. He looks like the guy that we heard about all spring and all summer. And, you know, this is another test. This is your real true road game, really hostile atmosphere at night, potentially crappy weather. Like, all of that is new, presents a possible challenge for him. And, you know, there's a little bit of, okay, now let's see if you can do that. But, you know, so far, there hasn't really been any reason to think that he can't.
And he hasn't been risky with the football. He's been careful. And as you said, every time we've kind of thought that maybe, you know, like before the Indiana game, I don't remember who it was, or the Cincinnati game, me or you saying, you know what, he may not complete 50% of his passes. And I don't remember who it was. But he goes out and completes, I think, 20 of 25.
I was going to say, if you tell me whether that person was right or not, that I can probably tell you who that was.
But, you know, then he completely answers that one. And at this point, while there are questions, I'm not in the mood, or I'm not inclined to doubt his ability to play well in this game, because he has given us no reason to think that he won't. And when you look at the Nebraska defense, they also have not given much reason to think that he won't play well. Because even though, and I go back to the Illinois game, they threw for like 80 yards but ran for 220 some. And if you have no passing game, your opponent has no passing game, but they're still running the ball on you, and it's not a service academy. Mm-hmm. That's not a good sign, because they were one-dimensional and they were able to make noise in that dimension.
Yeah, and more telling than just the raw yardage, 221 yards rushing, 5.8 yards per carry. And this was on a night when they were 9 for 24 for 78 yards. Yeah. So, I mean, that is about as one-dimensional gets. If you're averaging 3.3 yards per attempt and rushing for 5.8, that tells me that the defense, it wasn't that the defense was keyed on stopping the pass. I mean, no one keys on stopping the pass. That the default answer on defense is we have to stop the run first. There was no reason to respect Illinois' passing game, and they still gave up 5.8 yards per carry against an offensive line that is not as good as what Ohio State's offensive line is going to be. And Illinois' yardage total was not like mind-blowing, but Illinois had a bunch of short fields, so that's one of the reasons that
you wonder, they could have rushed for 300.
Yeah.
But they had I think Reggie Corbin had a 66-yarder, another guy had like a 37-yarder. But that's not good either, you know?
No, yeah. If you remember last year's Ohio State football.
Right. And so when you have Ohio State's running backs, you're thinking, well, I could see this playing out in a very similar manner. But then I would also direct you to their game against Colorado, where Stephen Montez, their Colorado quarterback, threw for about 370 yards on them. So this is an equal opportunity Nebraska defense. It's, you know, they're not going to they can be had either way. Mm-hmm. And really, it's almost the perfect scenario for an offensive coordinator when you're going up against a defense that has trouble against the pass. But you know what they lack in ability to stop the pass, they make up for in their inability to stop the run. And leaves things wide open for an Ohio State offense that has been as balanced as any in the country. It comes down to the weather in terms of how balanced the Ohio State offense will be. But then there are some coaches who like to throw the ball in the rain because it puts the defense in a bad position as well.
Yeah, the thing that should probably be most encouraging to you as an Ohio State fan is, well, first of all, the trenches, which is, I mean, kind of always the number one answer there. If your team has an advantage on both sides of the ball along the line of scrimmage,
it helps.
It helps. It
is the help.
It helps almost certainly decide the game. But Nebraska being not great at defending either rush or pass, and Ohio State is 1,040 yards rushing and 1,058 yards passing.
Yep.
That is about as balanced as you can be this far into the season. And it's not like they've been rushing the ball 55 times a game to get to that level. They're averaging 5.8 yards per carry. If you're averaging 5.8 yards per carry and you're going up against a defense that gave up 5.6 against Illinois, you should be in that 5.8, 6.0 yards per carry range at least.
At least, yeah, that's like the base.
Yeah,
and
if they are in that range, it would probably take a -3 turnover game kind of thing for them to lose. This is not last week against Miami where the Miami plan to win involves and then a miracle happened, but the Nebraska plan to win is Ohio State has to play a bad game. They have to turn the ball over. They have to make serious mental mistakes, real bad timely penalties. I mean, that kind of stuff. If Ohio State plays smart and hangs onto the football, they're going to win this game.
Yeah, and we've even seen in the past where there was a stretch a few years back where Ohio State kept losing the turnover battle but would still come out ahead. And I think they can do that here because of Nebraska's defense, but you don't want to go more than -2. You don't want to start getting crazy and just because turnovers wherever they are, if you start turning them over in your neighborhood, in your territory, then that makes it obviously so much easier to turn into touchdowns. And we haven't seen a lot of turnovers. There's been no interceptions.
Yeah, zero interceptions.
I feel like that will change this week.
0 interceptions, he said, jinxingly.
Exactly, and it'll be one of my 5 predictions. It's just, I guess maybe in order to offset the jinx, this is my carbon offset, my jinx offset that I have to pay for so that people get out of my mentions. But things have gone too well in the past game where even like a tipped pass, something like that, you're not seeing that. But you're also not seeing a lot of passes over the middle where that stuff comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you don't need to this game either, because if you're averaging 5.8 yards per carry in this one, then why stop running it? Now you're talking about, instead of running the ball 35 times, now you're talking about running it 50 times and just controlling the clock even more. And then when you've got if the Nebraska offense is super high up-tempo, as they are, and they're not moving the ball, now the Nebraska defense is just getting wasted and tired. And by that fourth quarter, they've got nothing left.
Right. Yeah, the up-tempo offense, which is one of those Scott Frost things that Ohio State, we talked about earlier, preparing for that, that's great. And if you put together a long drive, that really is detrimental to the other team's offense. If you're running tempo and you're going 3 and out, your defense is on the sideline for like a minute and a half and then right back out there. So if Ohio State can string together some long drives, put together some kind of punishing ground-based drives especially, put together a 10-play drive, 12-play drive, get a 3 and out from Nebraska, get those defenders right back out there, they're going to be gassed. And with this just being the second year for Scott Frost, they don't have the depth that Ohio State has. So, Ohio State, if they're out there for a long drive and Ohio State goes 3 and out, and then Nebraska goes right back out there, Ohio State can throw basically almost a whole second team out there and not have that big of a drop-off and survive that. If that's Nebraska, you can wear them down and really see that pay off in the second half.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be part of the plan as well. This offensive line, who did not grade out as champions last week, as we know, because they were terrible. Mm-hmm. Ryan Day said today that they didn't stay on their blocks long enough. They didn't reach that 80% credential or area that they needed for the to get that grade as champions. So They will be motivated to do that this week. They've all been challenged. They know that. And the running game at Ohio State should I think they know that this game is on them. The offensive line knows that. J.K. Dobbins knows that. And you think about all of the frustrations that he had with last year. I think this is one of those games. It's going to be primetime, his first primetime game this year, right? Mm-hmm. For Ohio State.
Yep.
And all of the eyes are going to be on them. This is his opportunity to get back that fame that he had, back to his freshman year, where he came out of nowhere, and he can reestablish himself as he says he's the best back in the nation. We'll get to see it on Saturday. If that's true, then we're looking at 160, 200 yards, something like that is what you would expect if they need it.
Yeah, and this is a chance for Dobbins to be pretty much the lone number one back in a primetime game for the first time since maybe that Indiana game that first year. Maybe I don't think Weber was back for the Oklahoma game, so maybe the Oklahoma game that first year. But this is a chance to have a statement kind of game. This is a game. This is not a great week overall on the college football schedule. Yeah. So if someone's flipping around, they're probably going to stop on this game for a while. If you want to put together a Heisman case, if you were Chase Young, J.K. Dobbins, Justin Fields, this would not be a bad time to
Garrett Wilson.
Probably not. You want to put together a freshman All-American case, that would not be a bad time to do it if you're Garrett Wilson. But yeah, if this game is close-ish, and Nebraska puts up 14 points in the first half, something like this, and it's 28-14 at half, and you're going to get J.K. Dobbins three full quarters, or maybe 4. I mean, Ryan Day has said that he expects it to be a 4-quarter game. This is the week when you might see 30 carries for J.K. Dobbins. And if it's 30 carries and he's 6-ish yards a carry, you're getting up, that's 180. And, if it's a little more than 6 or it's a little more than 30 carries, then you're pushing 200 yards. And that has a chance to be a real statement where, you put up that rushing yards that's 3 digits and starts with a 2, that starts to draw some attention.
Yeah, and they've made statements each week. Even the way that the Florida Atlantic game ended, that first 10 minutes or whatever, first 9 minutes was a statement, and they will be looking to make a statement this week as well, and they're in the perfect venue to do it. All of the eyes will be on them. I have been surprised by how many people are just saying Nebraska has no shot, and that's not just people covering Ohio State, it's national people as well, and we'll see how that, whether there is some uptick in people picking Nebraska, but I haven't really seen many, and that's surprised me a little bit that people have bought in this well on Ohio State.
Well, I mean, Ohio State has not shown any real weakness yet, and they haven't really been tested, but, they are basically at the, what else could they have done at this point of the season? Like, the teams that are on the schedule are the teams that are on the schedule, and they have not had a real slow start. I mean, they were down 5-0 against Miami, which I guess counts as a slow start.
Hot seat for Ryan Day.
Yeah, exactly. But let me just read you the scores by quarter for Ohio State this year. Ready? First quarter, 49-8. Okay. Second quarter, 86-10. Third quarter, 49-3. Fourth quarter, 30-15. So, first 3 quarters of the games, Ohio State is up 184-21. So that seems
obscene.
Yeah, I mean that's at that point that's less of a football game than a snuff film.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. But I guess if you can do it, just keep doing it, and then you relax in the fourth quarter, and you give up 15 points, and only score 30. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's when the first team offense and defense have been in there, they have just completely destroyed everyone. And which has been the most impressive thing to me, is just how thorough and how focused they've been when the first team's been in there. And it's just like Chase Young is in there, someone is about to get mauled. Like, someone is really about to have a very, very bad day. And when Justin Fields is out there and J.K. Dobbins is out there, like, yep, they're going to move the ball. The offensive line is going to get a push. The defensive line is going to get a push. The defensive backs are going to be in position. The linebackers are going to be in position. They're not going to miss tackles. Like, that is what you've seen for 4 weeks. And whether the competition is great or not, if you're doing that consistently, the scores may get closer when you're playing better competition, but if you're getting a push on both sides of the ball like the way they are, they're not turning the ball over. They are you're not missing tackles. You're not making having just complete busts in the secondary. If you do that, the scores may get closer, but you're not going to lose.
Right. If you don't keep Nebraska in it, then you should be fine. And that's not just missing tackles. That goes with the turnovers or some field position issues. I expect that Ohio State will be okay in this one. Do we want to give our picks? Have we decided? Have we been doing that?
Yes, we have.
I thought we have. Tom, I am going to go, and my ideal pick is 45-24, but because of the field goal issue, I can't. And I don't know that 45 is enough, but I'm going to go 45-28. I think 28 is too many. 21 seems too few for me. Mm-hmm. And 24 we know is impossible. So I have no choice but to go with 45-28, which I'm not really happy with.
Well, here's what you're not thinking about. 3 touchdowns, 3 2-point conversions. Boom. 24 points.
Shoot.
See, this makes me so nervous when you and I are picking like almost identical scores every week.
What do you got?
I went 42-24 Ohio State. Okay. They cover.
Yeah.
It's a respectable, but it's a game probably into the third quarter.
See, you believe in the field goal kickers. I do not.
There will be a time when it's, you're down in the red zone, and then Martinez gets sacked on third down, and then it's 4th and 13, and it's like, well, you're not going to convert that, so kick a 30-yard field goal on 4th and 13 kind of thing, or 4th and 15 or whatever.
I believe Ohio State will kick a field goal, and you are a notorious Ohio State special teams hater.
Sounds like someone is hating on Ohio State's red zone offense. not sure that's smart, but
I don't appreciate tables being turned on me. Tom, do you have anything else from this week, from today, from anything before we call it a wrap?
Not just that. If you are kind of on the fence on should I make the trip to Lincoln for this game or not, I really seriously think about making the trip. The weather doesn't look amazing, but when I put together the post with all the ticket prices and all that kind of stuff, you get tickets on the 50 for like $200.
Oh, wow.
Which for a primetime game, that's really not bad. It's a great city. Like it's a cool city. It's got a nice, it's like a nice setup around the stadium. There's stuff to do. The people are super friendly. They are the college football fan base that has this like reputation for being friendly. You can bring your kids. You can bring your kids. They have some cool traditions. It's a nice stadium. That is, of all the Big Ten stadiums I've gone to, that is my favorite one that we've been to. And that's 12 out of the 14. So, maybe Illinois is better. I don't know, but I can't really speak to that. I have, from what I've heard, not so much. So,
well, until you've been there, you probably don't want to just take it off the list. You wait to do your final rankings once you've been to Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I crossed Rutgers off the list already, so that's the other one that you really got to see it to believe it. But yeah, if you are thinking about that, if you are the type of person that goes to one road trip a year, think about doing it. There are ways to do it. You can drive out there and stay an hour outside, and it's not prohibitively expensive. Tickets are not crazy expensive. And this is one that's worth. This is a trip that's worth thinking about making.
It's crazy that you can get $200 tickets on the 50, because that's probably like what you would pay Ohio State next year for this game. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be like $170 as the second premier game or whatever, $150 with the Michigan game being, who knows, $190 at that point. So yeah, if you can't make it this year, try it again in 2 years. It's just a cool place to be. And we will, next time we're talking to you, we will be talking to you from there. So we want to thank you all for listening. Thanks for checking out the ozone.net. Make sure you check out the content there, read it. The rest of the shows on the Ozone Radio Network, listen to them as well. Got the Buckeye Sloopcast on Mondays and Fridays, Silver Bullets on Tuesday, and we will go as several times a week, as often as we feel like it, because that's how we roll. So we will talk to you guys from Lincoln, Nebraska next.
Des Moines, all right. We could steal a car and